What's going on, everybody? My name is Terry. Welcome to another KeySmash Studios video. Today we're going to be talking about how to set up 3D sound in Unity. This is a particularly powerful tool in game design. So I'm going to show you an example of how it's done, and then we're going to hop right into it and make it happen so you can follow along and do it as well. If I control the camera here, I've put a sound source on this cube, and you can hear that when I move left and right, and I've enabled 3D sound for this, that this sound moves left and right. So right now, because the cube is to the right of my player, I can hear the sound more on the right than I can on the left, and vice versa when I move to the left. Alright, so to set this up, it's actually moderately simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this cube and I'm going to delete this audio source, and we're going to set it up just from the start. So I'm going to go down here to add component. I'm going to type in audio, and you can see down here at the bottom that you can select audio source. Now, depending on what version of Unity you're using, you'll have a bunch of different audio options. I'm using 2019.4, which is the latest stable, long-term stable build. But this is an audio source, and most of its default settings are going to be okay for us, but I want to make a couple changes. So I'm just going to put a simple audio clip in here. I've just downloaded fire clip, so you can imagine this is a fire, and when you walk past the fire, you want the fire to be in 3D sound. And right now, if I just have it on loop and I'm near it, you'll see that I just hear this overwhelming sound no matter where I am, and it doesn't change based off of where I am in relation to the sound. So the way that you do that is you come down here to the spatial blend tab, and you're going to drag this from 2D all the way to 3D. And then there's a few other options that we have in order to sort of mess around with this spatial sound from the get-go. For the most part, you want to use logarithmic roll-off. It's the thing that gives you that sort of spatial awareness around a sound, meaning that the closer you are to the sound, the louder it is. And a logarithmic roll-off is quite similar to real life. If you're next to a fire, you'll hear it. If you're 20 feet away, you probably won't really hear it all that well. You might hear a few things, but if you're 100 feet away, you won't hear it. You can do a linear roll-off, which is just straight up. The farther you are away, the less you hear, and it's just a straight line, as linear implies. And you can do a custom roll-off, which is a little bit smoother a transition, like you can hear it a little bit closer at closer distances than you can at far distances by default, and you can add to this. So I'll go over all three of those, and we'll talk about what they mean. So I'm going to start with a logarithmic roll-off, and I'm going to make this a little bit more manageable. If I set 250 as my base max distance, when I hit play, this is actually a fairly solid setup. Near it, it's not too loud, but as I move to the left, it moves to the left. If I get further away, we can barely hear it. And vice versa, when I'm at the right, it's going to my right, and I can barely hear it. So that's pretty close to what we want in most cases. Now, there are a few cases where you might want to use a linear roll-off. For example, if you're making a drag racing game and you want to have like the start like doot doot doot, you want to hear that like 3-bang light as you go away from it, like you there's like that big sound when a race starts. As you go away from it, usually you want to be able to hear it for a couple more seconds. So a logarithmic roll-off falls off much faster than a linear roll-off. So we might want to do a linear roll-off there so we get that really aesthetically pleasing start sound even as we pull away from the line. So on a linear roll-off, if we go to this example, we'll just see that up close it's really loud, and even as we get further away, it's still loud. And we have to get much further away before we can't hear it. And you can change this max distance. If I change this max distance to 125, we can no longer hear it on this camera. But as we get closer, we can hear it again. So, you know, it's a very situational thing, but there are occasions where you would want to use a linear one. And then as far as custom roll-off, this one's actually my favorite to use, because you can really fine-tune what you need to do on a sound. So let's say that you have a sound in mind, for example, a gunshot. Gunshots really echo and reverb throughout an area. Unless you have a custom sound engine, which most people don't, you need something that's loud even at max distances, but then sort of falls off when you get towards the max distance. And I find that one of the best ways to do that is to use a custom roll-off. So right here, I've right-clicked this line and hit Add Key, and it creates this node that we can edit and change. So if I pull this all the way out, you can see, even though I'm in play, and I'm not really that close to the sound, we can see that there's a really finite spot where like the loud crack of a gunshot comes in. You hear like the distance difference between down here and right here. And that's really incredibly useful for a punctuated sound. So something that happens in your game, maybe like an arrow hitting a piece of wood or something like that. This custom roll-off can be incredibly useful for the right sounds, and all you need to do for 3D audio is to find the right blend for the right sound. This is so super important and so pivotal in game design that people can do their entire career just on sound design. If you'd like to hear more about that, please leave me a comment down below. I'm more than happy to talk about that and talk about future career paths for those that are interested in audio. As always, I hope this tutorial has been helpful. If you have any questions, let me know down below, or you can hop into our Discord. You can find a link in the description. You should follow us on Twitch or click any of the supporting links that you find in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. It really does help us out, and hopefully we'll see you next week.